So this is the first of 3 conversations that we're going to be doing this week, and tonight we have the pleasure of having Jonathan Nesci with us. Jonathan was born in Chicago and is currently based in Columbus, Ohio. Columbus, Indiana, right.
The smaller Columbus.
Right, the smaller Columbus.
Yeah.
But you kind of live between the two, though, right? Between Chicago and Columbus. Yeah. And he's probably best known for your pared down furniture and objects. He uses materials including aluminum, bronze, wood, glass, and concrete. And Jonathan's created a really nice network of fabricators in the Midwest that he works with to produce these objects. So maybe we should welcome him here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is fun.
So Totokaelo commissioned you to create the tables that are just in the middle of the store. And you described them to me earlier this month when we talked as a black box theater. Could you just tell us kind of how they're made and how they work and why they're kind of particularly suited for a retail environment?
Yeah, sure. What was great about the commission early on was Kate from Totokaelo gave me a design brief with what it should do, how many objects it should hold, but then it was really just like she let me be free to do my work, which is kind of rare for a commission to have that freedom to like solve the problem on your own without interference. Interference isn't the right word, but without just like letting you figure it out.
Yeah, you weren't she wasn't guiding you as much as maybe a more traditional client would have.
Which is nice. So the tables, thinking about them as just kind of a modular system that could be a lot of things. So there's 3 different sizes. There's a square, a rectangle, and a smaller rectangle where the edges all are the length of each one. So together they can kind of match up. But then they're reversible where they become a tray table by just flipping the leg. So, which wasn't immediately obvious. I didn't know, a screw could go in both sides of the thread. So once I had that discovery, it just became about like stacking them and having the tray have a lot of different movements that could change with fashion. And,
right, because they can become like a vitrine. You could stack them on top of each other. There's a lot of different configurations. And
there's 2 different height legs as well, so that they can cross over and become a step where the 2 legs combined make the height of the tall one.
And I think another thing we talked about was that it's good timing because the first collection you ever did was actually debuted at NYC at ICFF, right, back in 2007?
Yeah, that's right. I was working for an auction house in Chicago and took 2 weeks off to launch it ICFF at the Javits Center. Kind of maxed out my credit cards, borrowed money. Everything I was showing there was prototypes. I'm glad no one really made an order there because I didn't have the supply chain to fulfill it. So.
But wasn't it where a certain gallerist in Chicago kind of recognized your work and then?
Yeah, it was actually coming back to Chicago that he saw all the pieces in my office at the auction house and was like, "Who did these?" And 6 months later, we're showing a variation of it at Design Miami. So it was kind of a quick jump into kind of the gallery art design world.
Yeah. What I find most interesting about Jonathan is that the way that he first kind of got into design was he was working as a forklift driver at FedEx and then taking 3D modeling classes at community college at night, and then one of your friends said, "Don't you want to be a designer?" Is that
That's
how
pretty
it
close,
goes?
yeah. It actually came from 20th Century. I hit an estate sale really early on and found a table, put it on eBay, and it sold for, I think, like $1,500. And I was like, why? What's the connection? You know, why? So I just kept on doing it, and the guy at FedEx was like, you know, people design furniture for a living, and I was like, oh. So, and that became the goal then. You know, now I have something to chase. So I went to community college for 3D drafting and really just learned the tool to get the ideas out of my head.
And then it seems like your time at the Wright Auction House in Chicago was really pivotal in terms of you, like, basically interacted with some of the most important design objects out there and spent a lot of time looking at them really close up. Can you talk about how that influenced what you're doing today and maybe what you learned during your time there?
Sure. So after I got my certificate for 3D drafting after FedEx, I cold emailed Richard Wright, who's the owner of an auction house in Chicago that sells 20th century design. And I sold myself on the subject of the email. Like, there was hardly anything in the body of the email, it was all in the subject. And he called me and said, when can you come in? And 2 weeks later, I'm like schlepping furniture on and off a photo sweep at an auction house. But it's like the premier boutique auction house for 20th century design. So the best designers in the world, my first job was measuring the furniture, and so I got to I measured furniture for 5 years. So but a month there, when I was there for a month, I dropped the screwdriver on a table and shattered it. And on the same day, the Milwaukee Art Museum was on its way to look at it, to buy it. So that was, and then a month later, I broke a Gio Ponti vanity. But I found someone who could fix both of them, and they both sold, and it created my job of managing restoration. So I have an unofficial PhD in design history and restoration.
But I mean, you kind of continued that even when you went out, when you started your own firm, that you still continue to work with outside manufacturers to create these things. Like even the tables at the front were made, I forget the exact locations of them, but they're from that network that you've developed. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so what I learned managing restoration is that you need $500,000 of equipment to cut glass, or there's this and these people cut glass every day, or they weld every day, and they're experts. The welders who welded the table, he's been welding since he was 13, and he's 60. The machinist, their average span at the machine shop is 10 years. So, I realized early on that I can't be the one. I would have to dedicate my life to one of these lanes, and it became more efficient, and I got a higher quality by finding the best in each field.
But you're still very involved with all of these people during the production process. It's not.
It's so close. I had one Italian fabricator say you have to be a father to some and a brother to others and an uncle. I mean, there's all these relationships that you have to develop with these fabricators to get, number one, where they can care about a small batch production. I'm not ordering thousands and thousands of dollars from each fabricator. So it's kind of nice to have where it's more about the relationship and they want you to succeed. But it's mostly in Columbus, Indiana, and in Chicago. So I'm back and forth quite a bit, managing production in person.
Well, and another twist in your life story is that you left a big city for a small city, which is the opposite of what most people do. And from what I understand, have really been devoting a lot of your energy to kind of breathing like a new life in terms of design and architecture into the city of Columbus. Whether it's bringing a skate park to the city or opening your own gallery. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the things that you're doing outside the object making.
Yeah, sure. So when I was at the auction house, all these furniture designers are primarily architects, and they did, a lot of them did buildings in Columbus. So I knew of Columbus as this mecca of architecture, but I only knew all these names through the furniture they designed and not through their buildings. So it was kind of, I knew of the city, but architecture wasn't the land of interest. So there was as my kids were, approaching school age, there was a time where I really thought about where they're going to be going to school through their whole, their whole education, elementary and middle and high school. And this opportunity came up to pitch an idea in Columbus for a design biennial where you pair contemporary architects or contemporary designers with the architecture there for a pop-up. And mid-pitch, I just kept coming back to pitch it, and it just I could raise my family here. And it's been really rewarding because it's just, I see there's a shift to kind of small or smaller or focused, or where you can make a dent in a community. And it's been so rewarding the past 5 years, all the relationships between not only the metal shops, but you see the person you bank with on the corner, and it just feels really it just feels enriching to have a community where I felt in the city in Chicago, I felt a little lost. It didn't feel like I connected to, especially I was kind of in the suburbs of Chicago, so you didn't quite have that interaction. So it's been fun to live there, and they have such a, I don't know if everyone knows about Columbus, Indiana, but it's a town about 48,000 people. And Cummins Diesel Engines is headquarters there. And in the 50s, they subsidized the architect's fees. They paid the architect's fees for any public building. So every fire station, a police station, city hall, elementary, middle, high schools are all done by famous architects. And we're hoping that this idea can go forward without this kind of patron. So we're hoping that civic pride is the torch that carries on.
What do you feel, just living in that kind of environment, how do you feel like that has impacted your own work, being surrounded by that kind of architecture on a daily basis?
So yeah, I'm 37. I'm just trying to figure out who I am. Because the kind of untraditional education and launch of a career. I got married at 20 and my first son at 22, my second son at 23. So I started young and kind of a not traditional path. And, just now that some of the pressure is off, I'm just kind of going in and realizing how much of an introvert I am and how much I kind of need space to recharge. And it's nice to have this, if I'm in Columbus all the time, I go stir crazy, but it's nice to have this moment to really think about my work and not be distracted and have a little community and then go to New York or go to Chicago. And so I feel like right now I like this duality of coming in and out of the spaces and in and out of these worlds that are, it's all meaningful, but it's the holistic part of it that seems to work for me right now.
What can you share a couple projects that you're working on at the moment?
Yeah, there's, so I figured it out that when I was at FedEx and I decided I wanted to design furniture was 17 years ago. And then I started the auction house 15 years ago. And I'm just now launching my first mass produced piece with a manufacturer, a contract furniture manufacturer. So I'm really excited we're launching a series of tables with an octagon aluminum extrusion leg. That is, the name of the company is Veristeel, and in their name is the versatility. It's about the client knows they come to them and they can get something that's 2 inches wider than spec. And so I kind of designed the system that could be adaptable and maintain its identity through that. So I'm really excited to be launching that soon. And, I'm hoping those royalty checks come in right before the kids go to school, college. So
it's all part of it's all part of the master plan. Yeah.
And the other one that just became real this week is Chuck Taylor is from Columbus, Indiana, and there's nothing there that signifies that. And there's a local patron who wants to seed an idea to do a tribute to Chuck Taylor. So I think it's going to start with a sculpture, but hopefully lead to a Chuck Taylor outdoor basketball court. And I want to do a small skatable park, a pocket park. So if anyone has any ties to Nike or Converse and could help me link that up, I think I can get some local funding, but I think I'm going to have to go broader to fulfill a vision.
Does anybody have any questions for Jonathan? Or just, yeah, do you, I don't know, anything else that you wanted to cover that we didn't?
Yeah, I think the thing that's interesting to me right now is because of the craft beer market is actually a good direction of where I think design can go in a way where just the big dogs don't rule the market, where you can have these micro markets and still make a difference.
Yes.
Were there any designers that you came into contact with at Wright that really you find informative to what you do, or what were some of the pieces where you're like, holy crap, how did this happen?
I mean, I think the one that just every time I see it makes me smile is the work of Jean Prouvé and Pierre Jeanneret, Charlotte Perrion. Just the whole idea early on about kind of creating the system first, and then where but that's one thing I really wanted to talk about, where it's like crossing over lanes. That's what I think was interesting, where they're designing the furniture, but they're designing the whole environment. And I think a lot of times fashion and design and architecture stay in these lanes and they don't cross over. And that was a good example of them crossing over in a way that is still relevant, and the work is still, it's timeless.
Last call, anybody else? Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I think we're around until 8 o'clock. I don't know what time it is now, but free to hang out for a little bit longer. Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.